Okay, but I think a few points to note. No, it was not random. Not like last year. This one was coordinated. This one was planned because everybody knew it was an anniversary. And so when he talks about it being a calculated disguise, by whom? Rex's mother? Obienge's father? Their siblings? Are they the ones who came up with these disguises? Okay, so our young men were shot and killed last year. People who are still missing, their families were part of this very elaborate exercise, disguised as civic expression, but all coordinated, funded, premeditated, and politically instigated towards a coup.
15 people have died, Yvonne, since yesterday.
Does this also include Albert Ojwang's family? So they were all part of this conspiracy. That's the question that came out for me when he said this.
And you know, it's a bit sad for me when I was listening to the tone of that press conference. It reminds me of the president's tone last year on 25th of June in the evening after the breach of parliament and everything that happened, and the president came out and he spoke really harshly, and that tone was criticized quite a bit, and that same tone is what I heard from the minister today when he speaks like this. And it made me think about the images that we saw in our news bulletins today. Yesterday, I was doing the news and we read a statement from the Kenya National Commission for Human Rights. At the time, they had said 8 people had died, and all those 8 people had died from gunshot wounds. And then when you know today is day 2 and it's the aftermath of it, and the numbers have gone up to 15, and you learn that among those who were killed was a high school student who was going home on a motorbike on midterm break. And you hear about another family that talks about how there's that 17-year-old son, Dennis Juguna, the motorbike he was going home in was involved in an accident during the protest in Molo before police opened fire and killed him. Or the family of this Winfred Mwangi, whose husband, Kelvin Jao, who worked in road construction, had just left work when he was on his way home and he was shot in the head while standing at the Kikuyu bus stop. Or Fatuma Opang, who's the mother who has a nephew, a 17-year-old nephew, who was shot dead in Kajiado. She doesn't understand what happened. Or in Karatina, when you hear someone who was in a gym who was shot, a single bullet pierced through a window and struck Kenneth Ouma in the neck as he exercised, and he died. So when you do not talk about that, it comes as an afterthought in your press statement. In fact, he spoke after he was asked a question about something else, and he was like, oh, as a by the way, that any that. But what do you tell all these people? What do you tell all those who have been carrying the wounds for the past 1 year? We talked about how Rex Masai's mother, how much she has even changed physically compared to when we saw her the first time a year ago, and now you can see the toll that the grief has taken on her and her husband, who was on JKL last evening, and you could see how difficult it was for him to even speak. He had to keep composing himself before he says anything. And it is very important for people to feel that their pain is being listened to, that somebody actually acknowledges that something did happen. It's well and good when the Minister for Interior says no one is going to come out and support the police, and I will. But then now, what about these families who seem to be an afterthought, who seem to have been forgotten? And when they are mourning the loss of their loved ones, including a 17-year-old child who was on a motorbike going home for midterm. Very painful.
So State House was under renovation, and I think there's a story that we did that was talking about a long-running budget of nearly 3 billion shillings. But for this year, it was about 900 million shillings for renovations that were to go on. But when you look at the allocation, and I just want to take you step by step. So June 2025, just before the Finance Bill of 2024 happened, just before the Genz demonstrations happened, the National Assembly had approved 9.5 billion shillings for State House as an allocation. Following the withdrawal of the Finance Bill, and the President heard the cry of the people and was cutting on confidential votes and all other allocations to his office and others, State House allocation was reduced to 4.3 billion shillings. That was in July 2024. At that time, Musalia Mudavadi was the acting Treasury Cabinet Secretary. But now in Feb, when John Mbadi was the Cabinet Secretary, the National Assembly took it back up to 8.3 billion shillings in supplementary budget 2. 8.3 from 4.3. So that's an additional 4 billion shillings. Just today, supplementary budget 3 has been signed, and in it there's some 12 billion shillings for State House. So this is important. The original figure was 9.5 billion. It was cut to 4.3. The final figure is 12 billion shillings, higher than the original.
Mchezo wa town.
But the promise was
ground.
that you are going to reduce allocations.
By half.
Let's focus on the Office of the President, which is different from State House. 5.43 billion shillings was the original allocation. Because of Genz protest and withdraw the finance bill, it was reduced to 3.58 billion shillings. Good attempt. The final figure, as of the supplementary budget signed today, is 4.6 billion shillings. Of course, it doesn't get to the original, but it's gone up by about 1.2 billion shillings, or 1 billion shillings, if you like. The Office of the Deputy President was initially, that time the Deputy President was Rigathi Gachagua, it was 4.9 billion shillings. It was cut down to 2.6 billion shillings. That's almost by half. The closing figure is 3.1 billion shillings as of supplementary budget of today. In the past, between Feb and now, there has been an additional 100 million shillings. Now, take a moment and reflect. The Office of the Deputy President has an additional 100 million shillings between Feb and now, so that's about 4 months, yeah? Most likely it's been spent already because the year ends in a few days.
Of course,
and it can be spent under Article 223, which allows expenditure on unforeseen expenditure. During the same period, what has been happening? What has the Deputy President been doing?
Empowerment.
Been going across different constituencies with an empowerment program where there's 3 million shillings for the President and 2 million shillings from the Deputy President. What is that? When you promise austerity measures that you're going to do budget cuts, you go ahead and raise recurrent expenditure, reduce the development expenditure, which was reduced from 746 billion shillings down to 597 billion shillings. This increment in recurrent expenditure adds to the deficit. What does deficit mean? Borrow. So we are borrowing to spend on recurrent expenditure. What does that mean? We are stuck in the hole that we've been talking about. How do you close it? Either borrow or you raise taxes. What are Kenyans against? More taxes. So we're not making any movement. We're in motion, but not making any movement. So all these things, and just recently, there was some additional budget that was given by the National Assembly. The Committee on Budget and Appropriations made some changes and increased an allocation to the Office of the President, including some 44 million shillings, part of which was supposed to go to buying, replacing the old fleet of cars. For who? The head of public service. That is the reality of what you deal with today. Austerity measures, but still you have time to change cars that are actually functional, which you can actually sacrifice. At a time, you don't have resources to finance examinations. You don't have resources. Parliament has not, people's representatives have not put together money for compensation of people that have lost their loved ones and businesses. But we have time for new cars.
The only change maybe is cabinet secretaries and the Deputy President. Only that.
Okay.
Everything else is what my economics 101 lecturer would call ceteris paribus.
Okay.
Yes.
Ceteris paribus.
It's constant.
Okay.
And you see, Yvonne, when I heard the President say that on a day similar to today, 12 months ago, and you reflect on how he rode, on what he rode to on his way to presidency, it was the very, very things he was saying that stop. His style of politics is characterized by these empowerment or fundraisers, and he himself, not once, not twice, has gone on record saying nobody will stop him from building churches, building schools and all that, which is fine. However, what the young people then were asking, we know your salary. We know the amount of money that the people of Kenya gives you. Where do you get this extra money at a time when the economy is not doing very well? And that is a promise he made to them. I have heard you. I will change. I will do better. We will get a law that will ensure that these things do not happen. Well, the law that was supposed to be done is on ice. And we have seen now what we can call reinvigorated empowerment activities, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And this is actually what these young people are saying. You are not listening to us. We spoke, we thought the June 25th of 2024 was a moment that this country post and the executive reflected and would do better. But we are not seeing that. If you look at what you'd call the new cabinet secretaries, I mean, all of them came into office and they have brand new vehicles. They all have brand new vehicles. You look at the advisors, the list keeps on growing depending on who has been discharged from one position.
Or which coalitions have been
or which
formed.
coalition joins. So that is why all this that was promised on this fateful day that was supposed to have been a day this country pressed the reset button, zero has been achieved. The speeches are the same, the action negligible.
Yeah. In fact, I think it would seem there's been a
A man joins politics in 1992. There's bloodshed. He joins the parliament in 1997. Bloodshed. He's a major party in 2007, 2008. Bloodshed. His party's re-election is contested in 2018. Bloodshed. He becomes president in 2024. Blood spills on our streets every damn day. And the perfect example, there is no even perfect example, because what happened today was just crazy work, to be honest. And then the speech following after that, I don't know, man.
Ruto, makosa utafanya 2027, acha tu nikuambie mapema. Ni ati tumepiga kura kuchange governance, tunataka good governance, alafu tunaona tuna lead kwa screen atu watu wamekupigia kura, utatuambia nani alikupigia hizo kura na hizo namba zenye una lead nayo mbele ulitoa wapi?
Abducting us and killing us won't stop us. Seizing the future of this nation. R.I.P. to our fallen soldiers. Yes, they knew that freedom had a price. Peace, ease. Our country will not give up.
As for me, any content that is not related to what is happening in my country right now, I'm scrolling past it. In solidarity for those young soldiers who have been on the battle for justice, I just, my guilt, my Kenyan guilt cannot allow me to just be comfortable in watching other content. I feel like, right now we have to be on the know of what is happening in our country from time to time. I don't know about you, but as for me, that's how I feel. Thank you.
Hi Kenyans, mi sina maneno mengi. All I want to say is Ruto must go, like yesterday. Bye.
Enyewe Ruto must go. Enyewe Ruto must go. By the way, Ruto must go. Enyewe Ruto must go. Wash fire, Ruto must go. Enyewe Ruto must go. By the way, Ruto must go.